Good afternoon. We are here for a Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session, and we are going to talk about the Glenmont Corridors Opportunity Study, and we have members of the planning staff and the planning board chair here with us, along with Ms. Dunn, and we have the district council member and also committee member, Natalie Fonda-Gonzalez, who's here as well, who I know has been doing quite a bit of work in ensuring that we realize the full potential of Glenmont, which we have been desperately trying to see move forward for many, many years, and we're hopeful that some of those efforts will come to fruition soon. With that, unless there are any comments from my colleague, let me turn it over to council staff if there's anything to share, and if not, we will move forward with going through the opportunity study.
No, I'll just thank planning staff for coming forward with this great study. We received it in August. Everyone was quite busy at the time, so this is our first opportunity to bring it to the PHP committee. So we're excited to present this today, and I'll turn it to them.
Thank you, and good afternoon. For the record, Zubin Adrianwala with East County Planning. So today we are here to share the results of a nearly one-year effort in service of this study. So it's the Glenmont Corridors Opportunity Study. Next slide. I guess we'll have slides up soon. So thanks.
Yeah, they take a sec.
Sure. Thank you. So this is a study which of course I'm assuming this committee is aware, but just for people at home, it's distinct from a plan. So studies examine current conditions and offer recommendations and strategies to foster future stewardship of the county's natural and built environment and its communities. Through studies, planning staff develops what we hope is insightful, understandable, and data-driven analysis and policy-relevant research on land use, demographics, economic indicators, and other market and employment-related issues. So it's a tool at our disposal as the planning department that we frequently use to understand a geography-specific question. Next slide, please. So for this study, what we did was we looked at the existing conditions. We did a 15-minute living analysis, which my colleague Dr. Wong will introduce here. We also looked at focus group findings, and we did an informal economy study, the findings of which we'll share. And then finally, in collaboration with our partners, we came up with a vision for the area and some strategies that we think will be useful in realizing that vision. So next slide, please. So the goal of the study was to meaningfully introduce mixed-use development in the area, promote affordable and diverse housing types, enhance a multimodal transportation network, and then create inviting open spaces that serve the community. Finally, we also wanted these to align with broader county goals to implement sustainable, equitable growth policies. Next slide, please. So the area of the study is a combination of three distinct geographies, overlapping geographies. One is, of course, the Glenmont Sector Plan, which is the existing plan here, which you can see that in blue up there, which is, yes, that's right, thank you. Then we have properties along Georgia and Randolph corridors. So we looked at the two corridors that go through this study area. And then we also looked at a 20-minute walkshed, which is approximately 1 mile from the Glenmont Metro Station, which is what we wanted to see how this incredible asset can be meaningfully leveraged in service of the community. So we decided on this geography, and then we set out doing an analysis of the existing demographics of the study area. So next slide, please. So this study area is unique. It is home to a large Hispanic/Latino population, 51% compared to the county's roughly 20%. And it also has, since over half the population is Hispanic Latino, which is again substantially higher. And then we also noticed that, if you go to the next slide, please, that there are some housing challenges, and the median income in the study area is $94,000, which is about 20% lower than the county's median income. So the area supports a diverse demographic, of course, with modest suburban starter homes from 1950s to 1960s is how this area came about. Nearly 75% of the housing units are single family, higher than the county's average of around just under 66%. The family households and ownership, the area has a higher proportion of family households, resulting in a home ownership rate comparable to Montgomery County, despite the lower median income rate, which is $94,000 to the county's substantially higher, around 120 odd thousand. So next slide, please. So to really understand this and how this can serve the community, we wanted to do an analysis on 15-minute living, which is we wanted to study this community from the lens of the complete community model in Thrive Montgomery 2050. And to that end, I'll hand it over to Dr. Wong for introducing our analysis.
Thank you, Zubin. So for the record, my name is Louis Wang. I am planner in Design, Placemaking, and Policy Division. I'd like to walk through the 15-minute living model, focusing on the criteria and methodology behind it. So to put it very simple, we use a multi-model network analysis in GIS to evaluate how people reach key destinations by using transportation modes, such as walking, biking, and public transit. This approach offers a robust way to measure accessibility and assess whether essential amenities are within the reasonable travel time across the existing road and street network. In our study, so we follow the principle of Thrive that Zubin mentioned, which defines key amenities for a complete community. These are education institutions, healthcare facilities, shopping centers, parks, restaurants, religious places, all of which contribute to making the neighborhood more livable and convenient. So to conduct the 15-minute living analysis, we took 4 steps. First, we divided the Glenmount area into a grid of equal-sized cells, where each cell represents a specific location within the study area. This helps us understand the accessibility in a structured and consistent way. Next, we assign the key amenities to each grid of cell and measured how long it takes to reach them using different transportation. This step allowed us to compare accessibility levels across different parts of the Glenmount community. Once we gather all those important data, we built multi-model network dataset in GIS to simulate the real-world traffic conditions. Using this network, we calculate how many key amenities each cell could reach within 15-minute travel time. So finally, as you can see, the colorful map on the bottom definitely shows the results of the different accessibility levels, where dark color means high accessibility, while the light color represents low no access. Next, please. So analyzing the accessibility patterns reveals which area foster connect communities and which fall short. Here we aggregate the results from the 15-minute living analysis across all key amenities. The map on the left shows access levels categorized as none, low, moderate, or high. As we can see, only 15% of cells exhibit high accessibility, where 30% of the cells have no access at all. What does it mean for the residential patterns? When we overlay the housing data with accessibility, the chart to your right, we find out 40% of residential units have high accessibility, whereas 11% of parts lack any accessibility to those essential amenities by walking. Next slide, please. Similarly, when we expand the analysis to include biking and public transit, we observe notable improvements in accessibility. So the map to your left illustrates which area fall into the categories of none, low, moderate, or high access to essential amenities, where biking and public transit. Overall, 49% of cells exhibit high accessibility, where 27% of cells have no access. So we also examine the housing units data. So we find out that nearly 60% of residential units benefit from high accessibility, whereas 11% still lack any access to essential service by biking and public transit. So these findings indicate biking and transit provide significantly better access to the essential amenities compared to walking, highlighting the role in enhancing connectivity and mobility across the entire Glenmont community. Next, please. So overall, this 15 minutes living model provides a valuable insight into existing conditions of Glenmont. So analysis can summarize several key findings. First, this study area definitely has high potential for mixed-use development, particularly in areas with high accessibility, such as those areas near metro stations and major intersections. This location presents significant opportunities for redevelopment that supports a mix of residential, commercial, and community uses. Second, while public transit is available, pedestrian and biking infrastructure remains insufficient. There is a need for better infrastructure, including continuous sidewalks and protected bike lanes. Addressing these gaps would enhance overall mobility and improve access to the transit. So lastly, we all know public and green space plays an important role in creating inclusive urban environments. Our findings suggest that integrating public spaces into community fabric would promote more equitable accessibility and strengthen community cohesion. For example, encouraging inclusive urban design can further enhance livability and social interaction with Glenmont. So I'm handing it over to Zubin. Can you talk about the study?
Sure. Thanks, Zoe. So I think the concept of the complete communities was, of course, in prime focus in this study throughout. And while as planners, we were aware of how we use complete communities, we also wanted to use this study to meaningfully understand how the community that we are attempting to build complete communities for understood complete communities. So from a planner perspective, we of course see complete communities as environments where people can live, work, and play within a certain proximity. The underlying 15-minute model serves as a good model for that, but it's all not. We are not kind of married to the idea of just the 15-minute. If you can get to have a fulfilling life at 17 minutes, we are very happy with that too. And indeed, like a lot of planners are discussing the idea of the 20-minute suburb instead of just a 15-minute community, because we understand that different people have different lives. And then, of course, something that contributes to an active lifestyle, encourages social interaction and physical activity. So to that end, when we went to the community, and I'll speak about our community engagement after this, we were it was kind of a mutual education, a two-way street, because we were teaching them about the idea of complete communities, and they were telling us what complete communities mean to them. So next slide, please. So the way we framed it, of course, was with the underlying model of 15-minute living, determining kind of what a complete community means in their specific context. And again, this is where the study becomes valuable, because it allows us to go to a specific geography and look at a concept that is available in Thrive at our disposal to study and understand with a community. So we again engaged the community around this concept, tried to sort of frame it with Thrive, and then kept sort of learning from them also as to what they wanted to see. So next slide, please. So one of the key insights was that complete communities is not a static concept. We rather understand it on a spectrum of context. So completeness or relative completeness for one community may look very different from another community. So Glenmont is unique in some ways. It has a resource which is not available in many other places. It has a metro station. So a community that, for instance, does not have a metro station, their level of completeness and their experience of a complete community will be drastically different from a Glenmont. And then we also learned that what we want to focus on is kind of focus on the potential of completeness and not some sort of singular ideal of completeness. So again, this was the education that, frankly, the community gave us through our engagement with them. So next slide, please. So because this was a study, engagement was not quite as wide-ranging as master plan, but we still tried our best. We sent around 948 postcards. We had digital ads, and then we got some clicks, so we could calculate how many ad clicks we got. The postcard also had a QR code, which helped us recruit people for the focus group. We had a consultant who helped us with the focus group. And we also had a questionnaire which generated around 273 responses. So again, in the questionnaire, you could respond and say, I'll be interested in participating in a focus group. And then we got an email saying, we have noted your application for the focus group. And then we responded to them saying how we'll recruit. And then, of course, the consultant was our focus group filter, basically, and they looked at demographic profile for the focus group to make sure that we were getting diverse participation in the focus group. So next slide, please. So we conducted 8 focus groups in this community. So 3 of them were with adults, which are consultant-led for us. And then 2 of them we worked on with Identity Inc. In their school program. So we went to the 2 high schools in the community, and we spoke to most of these kids were 9th graders that we had a chance to speak with. And so we had a good conversation with them to understand their needs. So between these 8 focus groups, what we started hearing about were kind of similar problems. One of my kind of favorite anecdotes from the focus group was in the adult focus group, somebody said, I'm really afraid because there are all these teenagers hanging out sometimes at the station. And the teenagers said, I'm really afraid because sometimes there are teenagers hanging out at the station. So when I went back and spoke to the community, I said, you guys share the same concerns, by the way. So it's age agnostic to the concerns that you share. And of course, people want to see their community develop and their neighborhood grow. And they understand that development brings opportunities and challenges. As I said, this was a mutual education for the community as well as for us. The community really helped us understand their neighborhood and their desires much better. Next slide, please. So with the help of the consultant, we came up with some strengths. We did a SWOT analysis, and I'll kind of walk through them. People have a strong sense of neighborhood and community presence. People love this community. The schools and supermarket, the walkability here is appreciated. People are aware of this. They understand that the metro itself is a big asset, and they are very aware that it's not coming to any other community anytime soon. Of course, they appreciate the parks, the diversity, and then Tacos Don Perez was a big landmark that came up. Yes, so maybe next time we do this presentation at Tacos Don Perez. Again, a happy anecdote from this focus group. We had offered their choice of gift cards, and I'm happy to report that it was an option between Tacos Don Perez and Amazon, and a majority chose Tacos Don Perez. So we were happy to sort of inadvertently send some business to a local business also. So with that, we'll come to the weaknesses part, unfortunately. So next slide, please. The weakness issue was no clear identity. They say that, our neighborhood lacks an identity. The community has its own identity. They're proud of it. They raise the issue of lacking safe travel routes. One, again, anecdote that stuck out from the focus group was one neighbor telling the focus group that, I really look forward to trying all of these restaurants. I just cannot get to any of them because she had some accessibility issues, and she was like, I'm afraid the times that I can get there, I cannot actually walk to these places. Happy to report that another neighbor immediately offered support and said, I'm going to take you out to lunch to Tacos Don Perez at some point. So again, testimony to a very strong community. People, of course, complained about limited hangout spaces. This was obviously a concern also noted by the young teenagers, a lot of whom walk from their respective high schools to the local McDonald's sometimes during lunch hour. And they also noted that it's not safe to do that. And then, of course, general maintenance and code enforcement issues also came up. Next slide, please. With opportunity, the community noted that, the focus group noted that the Glenmont Shopping Center has the potential to become a community commercial hub. They acknowledge that new housing growth is possible here. And because we had sort of had this conversation with them, they also acknowledge that this is one community that can become a fully walkable community, because even though we do not have the results of the GIS analysis to share with the focus groups, when we shared these maps, they were often surprised to see how proximate these places were, but how difficult actual access was. So even geographic distance, or as the crow flies distance, does not often translate to easy access to a place. With that, we'll come to the next one, which is threats. So we heard from people saying that it's unsustainable for raising families and aging. People were concerned about being able to have affordability in the area for themselves. And then this was during the red line closure when we were having these conversations. So people were concerned about long-term metro rail challenges, funding, safety, operations, etc. Next slide, please. So to that end, we also, as part of the focus group, we did a mapping exercise with the community. So we gave them this map without any of the blocks that you see, and what we told them is, tell us about your neighborhood in this map. And what we asked people to do is draw the extent of their neighborhood. So the prompt here was saying, this is the place where you are comfortable walking your dog, or if you have a child, if you go on a walk with your child or a stroller, this is where you go. And then if that didn't register, we said, if you hear of a car break-in in this part, you get concerned. And that's your neighborhood. So the blue kind of geographies that you see on this map, these are people drawing their neighborhoods according to them, and then marking the approximate location of their home. In some cases, we told them to do home bases. So for school students, we told them to do their home base as their school, which is why you'll probably see both Kennedy and Wheaton schools marked there. And then we asked them to do driving and walking routes throughout their neighborhood. So as people started doing that, what we realized that is both Georgia Avenue as well as Randolph Road are significant barriers, which is none of these blue blobs really crosses either of those major roads, which means walkability is a challenge. And then it also becomes a barrier to actually cross over and take ownership of that neighborhood. People had like access to kind of secret routes of like getting to Wheaton Regional Park, but they weren't always walking there. A lot of driving routes ended up in Wheaton Regional because people appreciate that as a landmark, but getting there just by walking is not always possible for many of these residents. And there was a desire to have more walkability to local parks. So with this exercise, we kind of, again, this was the shared mutual understanding of the neighborhood, of the community, and it really helped us inform some of our strategies. Next slide, please. Along with that, we also did an informal economy study where we hired a consultant to go out and talk to local businesses, such as Tacos Don Perez and smaller businesses. Again, the concerns were similar. These were about 9 interviews that they carried out and a survey in the community. What we heard was that there is appreciation again for these local businesses, small businesses, but people are, of course, concerned about safety and code enforcement. The more informal businesses are concerned that if development comes, then what is their space in the community? And then there was also concern about some government assistance for understanding regulations in the community. So there was a fruit vendor who was at that point having some issue. We were lucky enough that staff took some initiative and could actually connect them to the right resources from county government. So through the planning process, we were fortunate enough to be able to sort of address some of these concerns for the community members. But again, even in the focus groups, these small businesses are valued, and there is a desire to see things improve for them too also. So next slide, please. So this is the sort of current status of what the community's kind of center looks like, and people are well aware of it. They want it to become something more than a parking lot. So what we did was, with all this input that we gathered from the community as well as through the focus groups, we took it with the existing master plan and generated an image for the next slide to see what it can potentially become. And we have shared this with the community members. They would like to see something like this happen. Of course, this is not completely designed, but we consulted with our urban designers, and it conforms more or less with existing zoning guidance that we have from the existing master plan. So this is something that's, at least on paper, is more or less possible in the community. Again, we tried to show the idea of central civic green, some kind of a public space. I think the desire was to grab an ice cream. We did it in some part in summer. So the idea was I want to grab an ice cream and go sit in a park and enjoy it in my community. So we think that the central civic green could be valuable, and urban civic green would be valuable for this community. So We also looked at some other areas where different things were possible. So next slide, please. So this location that you see the artist rendition for is, if you could click one more, is at near Shorefield Road. So on the left up there, you see H Mart. That's the H Mart parking lot. So the vantage point is looking from that intersection, looking out. So with the introduction of Georgia BRT, if you go to the next slide. So with the introduction of Georgia BRT and kind of making these spaces more from a corridor perspective of what is possible, we think that we can start activating these spaces, these corridors, as destinations and not just thoroughfares. So that is the desire in the community as well. And then next slide. This is sort of anywhere along Randolph Road kind of a rendition. We looked at what's possible on Randolph Road. And again, we don't have guidance from MCDOT about whether it's median running BRT or whether it's curb running. So we assumed either or condition. And then we said that Randolph Road could have some of this kind of infrastructure. And again, there is pedestrian activity there because the kids are walking to their high schools. Again, the neighborhoods around them are typical suburban patterns, so there's no parallel street often for them to walk along safely. So you'll see pedestrians along Randolph and Georgia, sometimes almost at all hours, because when the artist and I went there, we were both surprised to see how many pedestrians were there at really sort of a non-peak hour. So we were both kind of surprised by that. So next slide, please. So then again, we sort of did this whole analysis, and then we wanted to tie this back to Thrive, which is kind of our guiding star. What we did was we aligned the outcomes of the study with Thrive, and if you look at the study, it's more or less structured along similar lines as Thrive. So next slide, please. So with the strategies, we said that complete communities is kind of front and center. This is a place where we can advance the 15-minute living community model. There is an opportunity here. There's definitely the square footage here to be able to create some kind of a central civic green with satellite parks, pair that with better pedestrian access, and people can almost have sort of a green hopping experience in the neighborhood because the park's infrastructure is there. It's just not always accessible. And then, of course, something that supports local retail and housing options. Next slide. Again, the compact growth around corridors. We want to focus on the principles of corridor-focused growth here. Also, implement housing diversity strategies along the corridors first. And finally, as part of that, also strengthen Glenmont's identity through placemaking. People drew a distinction between sometimes not wanting to be hyphenated as Wheaton Glenmont. They said, we are Glenmont and we'd like to be Glenmont. And they wanted a more distinct identity for themselves. So I think there's a placemaking opportunity here. And then, of course, ensuring safe multimodal access. I will say here that during the questionnaire, and I wish I had added those results too, use of buses and pedestrian infrastructure was highly correlated to income levels reported. So if people's incomes were lower, they were much more likely to report that they used buses. So not a sort of revolutionary finding, but we have that on paper from the community. So we want to ensure safe multimodal access. Next slide, please. For transportation, of course, Vision Zero and safety measures, something that we learned from the students too, that they want better access, improved bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. At one point in the student focus groups, there was a sort of small sidebar conversation about using Lime bikes to get around to places, and that they're not always available. So there is some organic micro-mobility happening in the neighborhood. And then, of course, we want to look at enhancing transit services and amenities, expanded sidewalks and walkability, and then safe routes to schools and parks. Next slide, please. So for housing, of course, we want to have mixed income affordable housing through redevelopment, and then expanding housing typologies. As I mentioned, that even in the grown-ups group of focus groups, we heard concerns about affordability in the area, and then seniors wanting to age in place or wanting to age in the neighborhood, but just unsure if they can continue affording their neighborhoods because the housing typologies are just not available to them. Finally, with parks, we think that somewhere along that intersection of Randolph and Georgia, there is a possibility of creating a central civic green. Expanding park connectivity will be crucial. Economic activity in and around parks, which our parks colleagues have supported as part of the study, where we think that if you walk to Wheaton Regional for a picnic, you should be able to have access to some kind of food or something like that, even for smaller parks. So again, then, and of course, in incorporating green infrastructure, which is critical to the implementation of Thrive also. Of course, equity with engaging underrepresented communities through the development process will be critical. Equitable access to services is also, of course, critical. And then we want to sustain community feedback. I'll say that this community has, we got so much interest for the focus group. We were worried about recruitment, and then the challenge turned out to be having 120 applications for only 24 odd spots. So the community is definitely engaged and interested. And then, of course, whatever the future holds for this community, we think that urban design strategies that allow for small businesses that can meaningfully formalize the informal businesses will be critical, because these informal businesses, they generate, of course, their own jobs, and they provide, most cases, food at a price point that might be difficult for a more formal job to provide. So getting a pineapple for $8 is always fantastic, like a spice pineapple. So we want to see that future strategies meaningfully support these small vendors also. Next slide, please. And then, of course, none of this is possible without economic competitiveness. Again, supporting small and medium enterprises will be important. Acknowledge the unique identity of the shopping center. This is it has a unique opportunity there. Enhancing business longevity and community engagement will be critical. And then, of course, flexible opportunities for small vendors is an important piece to economic competitiveness. And finally, we'll need some specific strategies for the shopping center, which the current master plan that's there supports, but this study kind of also looks at them. So next slide, please. We have, even after this study was completed, this was this September, where we went back to the community, showed them these images, and we had very good traffic at our tent. This was the second year for us doing this, and people want to see this vision realized. Again, the community is supportive of it. People kept asking me, what is the construction schedule? I said, no, this is just an artist's imagination. So I had to turn away a lot of disappointed residents. But yeah, the residents are excited about this. They want to see this vision realized. And yep, so that's it. So again, how will we use the study? It's a conversation starter for any future development. It became a community check-in for us. It's also in some ways a Glenmont plan update, though we didn't change any zoning or recommend any zoning updates. If a future master plan comes here, then this study becomes kind of a waypoint, like a landmark sort of to stop and look at, reassess what was happening in 2024, 2025. And then finally, more selfishly as a planning professional, it really helped us do a check-in on the idea of 15-minute living and complete communities. As I said, that it was really an education from the community to us about what a complete community means to them. So yeah, we are grateful for the engagement from the community. So with that, I'll...
Well, thank you. Appreciate all the work, and the vision is great, and the question is the execution. So I know there's a lot of interest among community members and all of us in the county that want to see this part of our county reach its full potential. Let me turn it over to the district councilmember, Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to say a couple things. Number one, I think the study was very timely. And this is difficult because I had to hold myself because there are things that are about to happen in Glenmont that I'm so excited about, but I cannot share at this moment, but I'm hopeful that in the next few months we will soon do that. I've been talking to different civic associations around Glenmont, and I am keeping them posted. I'm gonna say that and just leave it there. The second thing, I got offended by there's one line when you said that in your presentation that the quality of the supermarkets was not high or something along those lines. Man, whoever says that has never been to H Mart. I love that place, and we do have a couple other supermarkets there. I felt like I had to say that to you. The issues of connectivity, they're real. And I think it's one of the reasons why I was able to get Governor Westmore to come to the Wheaton Glenmont neighborhood a couple of years ago. We moved together to have this grant from the federal government to make Georgia Avenue specifically safer for people to walk and bike. We were 97% there, and then we changed presidents, and that grant disappeared. So I also wanted to say that. I know we have a strong delegation at the state level, and I know they care, and we're going to continue working with them to ensure that we have the funds needed to make some of these changes. There are a couple of other things moving forward. I'm glad you put the picture of the Glenmont Forest Civic Association Festival that you were there. I remember seeing you and different people from the community approaching the planning department's table, asking questions. That particular space, it's great, especially because we're building an urban farm right there. I wish you have highlighted the actual urban farm because it speaks about the community there. That farm is being led by the neighbors in Glenmont. And it's testimony of the things that are happening there because the community cares. So that's one thing. And then I appreciated that you spoke about high school students. I have done quite a few events at Kennedy High School specifically, and getting their feedback. And one of their main obstacles in terms of how they move around to get from Kennedy to, the Wheaton Library or Wheaton Regional Park or the metro station, so on, is safety in terms of transportation infrastructure safety. Not enough, the sidewalks are not wide enough. They don't feel safe biking there, although they want to. So you kind of alluded to that, and I appreciate it. The comments, and it just reinforces what I hear from the youth. And then issues with DOT and the CIP coming up. I mean, I know we were talking about the University Boulevard sector plan and talking about how can we make sure that as a county, we move some of those recommendations forward very soon in terms of the ones that deal with safety. The same goes to Randolph and in Georgia, especially near or around the schools. We owe that to our community. And in terms of housing affordability, we need to increase supply. And it goes back to the first point when I started talking right now, the thing that I cannot say. But things are going to be awesome in Glenmont very soon. And I'm proud of that work. Oh, the last thing that I wanted to mention that I brought up during the University Boulevard sector plan, the co-location of the park police and the police station is within this boundary. You didn't mention it, but you should have, because it connects with public safety, but also ensuring that our police officers feel appreciated and welcome working in a place that is safe for them, because the current building is not safe. When it rains, it gets flooded. It's really bad. So look forward for a CIP item that is coming up in the next few months about that co-location for the Park Police and County Police District 4. That's an exciting development in that neighborhood, and the connection to Wheaton Regional Park and Brookside Gardens. You had to also say Brookside Gardens, ensuring that people can walk and bike to that location. It's also a big part of it. And then I will end with highlighting the work sessions that we have in the Economic Development Committee where I serve as a chair. We have a retail study work sessions and ensuring that we support those mom and pop businesses is part of the heart of the conversations that we're having. And it goes side by side with everything that you just mentioned in this study with retail in Glenmont, especially understanding that as we move a certain project forward in Glenmont, the one that I'm not going to mention here, we need to ensure that some of the businesses that are there can stay there. To me, that's critical because it's the heart of that community. That diversity that we have in Glenmont is beautiful. It goes alongside the Wheaton diversity, and I'm aware that they don't want to be called Wheaton. I live right in between both of them. So sometimes I'm saying that I'm from Glenmont, and many other times I'm saying I'm from Wheaton. Depends on the audience. But it's something that we need to protect and enhance, as you have mentioned. And with that, I thank you so much for your work, but I rest assured that we're going to be using your study. It's not one of those studies that departments do and then you leave it in a shell. No, I'm going to use it as we move forward with other things that we have in Glenmont. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Vice President Trona.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the work and the presentation. This is a very unique area. It's like you said, it's the end of the red line on this end, and because of that, this area also gets a lot of people coming through it. If you're coming from East County, it's the closest metro to you, and so a lot of buses come into it to get to other parts of the county, and so it's a really unique throughput way. In addition to the community members that actually live right there, they just get a lot of traffic. I've spent a lot of time in this area and have lived off of Randolph Road for a long time, and so excited that this was done. I read it when it came out a couple months ago, but glad we were having this presentation. I just wanted to lift up a couple of things. The Vision Zero safety measures, and Councilmember Fanny Gonzalez was talking about this a little bit. These are some of the things that I think are most important to do urgently, even prior to redevelopment. Like, one of the things that you have in the report is and this has been a pet peeve of mine across the county, but particularly in this area, is the pedestrian crossing intervals. These are just massive streets that it takes, even if you're fully able-bodied, and I'm not young, but I try to be young. It's hard to get across, and I know it's always a tough thing. And so that the more crossings that have visible paving, and just some of these things that are in here that should happen like now. Has there been any conversation since this came out with DOT or with SHA or anybody about moving some of these along quicker? Or if not, I'm sure there has been some, but I just think some of these are really things we want redevelopment for sure, and excited about that, but some of these should be happening as soon as possible.
Hi, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Jessica McVeary, planning supervisor with our East County Planning Division. We have not continued conversations specific to Glenmont with our colleagues at MCDOT since releasing the study. However, as Mr. Adrian-Bala mentioned, the study is really intended to be that check when capital improvement, when we're reviewing the CIP, right, or when we're reviewing mandatory referrals.
Good thing we're going to be coming up on that soon.
Right, exactly. And so that's an opportunity for us to sort of revisit the study and the specific strategies and locations that are identified, and reaffirm those and as being priorities for improvements.
Well, one of the things I might suggest, I know they're deep into the county government, in presenting to us by January 15th, but it might make sense just to ping them and just say, like, this is something I think you've heard from at least two councilmen. I'm sure Councilman Friesen would agree. Like, I'd love to see some of those things reflected and talked about in the upcoming CIP discussions, because they're needed. The other thing I wanted to bring up was one of the interesting things in this report, in addition to being a highly Latino area and immigrant area and a lot of small businesses, it's also got a ton of renters in it. higher than the normal parts of the county. And I think the report noted that nearly 28% of the renters in the area are cost burdened, which is higher than the most of the county as well. They're spending more than 50% of their income on housing costs. I wonder, in the focus groups you had and the discussions, could you talk a little bit about how you centered or talked with those folks around the issues in the future of this area? Because that's obviously going to be a big part of the going forward.
Yeah, thank you. So with the renters, especially, there were some renters in the focus groups themselves, and they did report they were not as cost burdened with 50%, but they did report that. And then housing availability and housing anxiety is an issue that some of the focus groups did raise. And again, the focus group, of course, as diverse as it was, there was that conflict that we saw kind of play out live in a group of 8, where people are saying we want housing for sure, and then others saying we want it, but we want it to be done carefully. So I think that tension that sort of is in all our communities, we saw that in this sort of microcosm of a focus group there too. The challenge that came from seniors in the focus group was that they weren't sure where they would go. Simple things were mentioned sort of anecdotally, like my unit has a lot of stairs. I don't know how many years I'm going to be able to do that.
Right.
If I want to stay here, where do I go? I don't think I can afford a single family. Like these kind of individual conversations were there, which spoke to the need for a different types of housing availability. But yeah, the questionnaire was where we saw from renters that there was anxiety about access. But at the same time, as you pointed out, this is unique. It has a metro station at a relatively affordable price point still. So for a lot of them, that this is even for in the focus group, a lot of people pointed out quite straightforwardly to us that this was the only metro station I could afford. So right. In the county, and which is true. So they're like, I got the first house I could find. Like we heard a lot of those conversations from people. So that asset, the community absolutely values it, and of course, Wheaton Regional and Brookside Gardens are incredibly valued assets. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the availability of housing, especially if you want to buy, is still limited there. So.
Appreciate that. And then my last point that or question. I was really intrigued by the 15-minute modeling. So good work on that. I know that was. Where did you create that in-house? Is it the first time you're using it? It's the first time I'm seeing it used. So just was curious if you could say more about how you developed it and how you're thinking about using it going forward. And then if there's, as a kind of a 1B, would be the 20. I was glad to hear you mention the 20-minute. Suburban's kind of developed in the last few years, as far as, which I think is really important for us because we are, we have very dense urban areas, but we also have a lot of suburbs, and having the talk, I think the language of it will be really helpful going forward to make people see, like, no, we're not trying to squeeze everyone into what a 15-minute living, the 20-minute suburb, or whatever. It's just a good conceptual framework to talk about the different types of topography. So 1A is about the 15-minute, how you developed it, and 1B would be maybe a little bit on the 20. And then
Thank you for the question, and I'm excited to talk more about this model. It's true, yeah, we build the multi-model network analysis in-house. So actually, we carefully examine all the available data sources, trying to mimic the real traffic condition. Like we include like the street network data source, we include like a metro lines, we include the BRT lines. All those things are people using every day. So for the data parts, we also examine, any like a tiny street segments where that allow U-turn. So we even consider those kind of conditions so that we'll really extend, truly like a 100%, existing condition of Glenmont area. So for the conduct a 15-minute living model, as you mentioned, whether it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes, it really depends on the geography features. It's like this 15 minutes actually tie into the urban environment, which 100% fits Glenmont circumstance. So that's if we definitely can make this concept apply into any other county areas, because we already have the data set model built as a countywide. So we just make it happen in the Glenmont area, but in the future, we want to examine some suburban area, 20 minutes living concept, we definitely can do the similar analysis, trying to really promote our understanding of how people using this amenities every day. So I want to mention in Glenmont areas, what we examined is like how residence units really could reach out to the number of the accessible amenities nearby, which means those amenities are not just limited within Glenmont area, definitely beyond the boundaries, like how they can reach out to those amenities within 15 minutes. So that as you can see the colorful map, the dark color means high accessible, which means like more than 3 key essential amenities they can reach out to, versus like a lot of like a light color areas, some of them represent 0. It's like they cannot reach out to any of amenities nearby. So I think it's really help us understand what exactly happening in this area. And when we tie into like interview questionnaires and this focus group, really help us understand why people have those kind of feedback and concerns. Yeah, so I'm willing to answer more questions if you are more interested about this method.
That was helpful. I mean, I'd be very interested, just side note, when you do the 20-minute or more of these analysis, I'd be like to see how it's done, like how it's actually done. It sounds like it's a combination of GIS and maybe actually getting on the ground there, or what's that's. I'm trying to understand.
So it's mostly GIS, but we have existing data sets which help us like calculate how to get from point A to point B by different modes. So what we have is it could be a high school, for instance, and that feeds into our education model, for instance. So the maps that you saw are a combination of the 5 factors that we had pointed out earlier. Yeah. So we can do this analysis kind of spread out based on just education, just healthcare. Okay. So we have those maps, but then this presentation would be, it'll be a much longer presentation if we had done that. But yeah, we have those, and it's all kind of informed by the GIS underlying model that is there. But yeah, we do have the model available to us for the county. And to your point about 15 versus let's say 20 or 25, it's just a matter of changing the minutes in the software and seeing how do outcomes improve at 20 or 25 of walking or biking or transit or whichever it may be. Yeah.
Got it. Well, it's very, very interesting, and thank you for your work on it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited about that work. I look forward to seeing it in other applications in other areas and other communities. So it's going to be really interesting for us to be able to monitor. And I think it is important, as noted, a 15-minute living community means something different in different parts of the county. In an urbanized setting like downtown Wheaton or downtown Silver Spring or downtown Bethesda, that could mean dozens of restaurants and a farmer's market and a number of other amenities, dry cleaners, et cetera, options for those things, because they're some of the most urbanized areas of the county and really of the state. In other areas, it means one of each of those things. And it might mean a drive 15 minutes versus a walk 15 minutes, depending on where you are in the county. But the idea is having the things that you need in proximity to where you need them when you need them. I mean, that's what most people want, but how they access them and what type of community they want to live in, we want to provide options and choices. And I think that's important for us to do. I appreciate the conversations about the CIP and how we can do this. I talk a lot about how we harp a lot on master plans about what the private sector doesn't do, and we don't spend enough time talking about what the public sector fails to do, that we talk a big game about what we're going to do on our end of things, the many billions of dollars of costs and all the master plans that we have on the books right now. Most of those costs are public investments that we have yet to make that would make our communities much better. And I think there are opportunities. I would love, as a follow-up to this, to think through for the committee of what would the most cost-effective public investments be in order to create the placemaking and the safety and the connectivity and the mobility and the improvement to 15-minute living that you've talked about. And maybe if we can kind of think through a cost-benefit analysis to what that might look like, because it's one thing to just reach out to MCDOT as they are preparing the CIP and say, hey, we just did this report and we'd like to have something in Glenmont there. I think all of us would be supportive of that. We'd like to see that, but I'm not sure how helpful that will be. I think it would be even more helpful if the committee has here's the bang for your buck opportunity of what could really make a difference in moving the needle, and then we could advocate for it, on our own. And I think there's quite a bit of support here for that, to see some of this come to fruition. I think that would be really helpful. I mean, we're not exactly talking about it here, but it's related. The same conversations have come up on University Boulevard on some of the safety improvements and connectivity improvements, some of which are public projects or could be public projects, where we could make that corridor safer with CIP investments. And what would those be? And what would, if we can't, do the hundreds of millions of dollars in this CIP realistically and adding in new projects, what are the hundreds of thousands and, low digit millions, which are much more doable in a multi-billion-dollar CIP, to make happen much quicker, to make intersections safer so that families can cross the street to get to the taqueria, to have lunch, or to get to their child care facility, or to get to their job, or to catch the bus, or to go visit a neighbor. And I think about even when I grew up, I lived right across from a community center, and it was not safe enough for us to cross the street as kids, a main state road, to get to the community center, even though it would have taken less than 15 minutes or about 15 minutes to walk to that community center. And so as the crow flies, it was in close proximity. But as children cross a street, it was not safe enough for us to cross. And we have examples of that all over the county, which we could make safety improvements in a reasonable way to address that without dramatically changing the entire infrastructure of that entire state road, which ultimately would be nice, but is not realistic to do immediately. I don't see any other colleagues. Are there any other comments from the planning board chair or from planning staff on this effort or on next steps?
I can just add, Carrie Sanders, for the record, these are great ideas and great feedback from the committee. One thing that we do every year, the planning staff provides a report to our planning board as it relates to the CIP, and I think this has given us some ideas of how we may do that, and maybe a cost-benefit analysis, as well as connection with MCDOT and sort of our engagement with them. I think this gives us some good ideas for how we could do that, and I was just mentioning to the chair that that's something that we could explore. We typically do that every spring when the CIP is developed, so we could look at this a little bit in respect to your...
Here's my suggestion. Mm-hmm. Before that, well before that, ideally like mid-December, if possible, like over the next 4 weeks, if you could submit to us, and I don't think we'll have time to do a committee session to present it, maybe we could do that subsequent to it, but present to us by mid-December, before the holidays, and a month before the county executive is going to send his capital budget submission to us, a list of doable project. Saying we should build out the entire bus rapid transit network countywide, which is a multi-billion-dollar effort, probably not helpful for this exercise that we could realistically look at and advocate for. But realistic ways, either in particular parts of the county, like Glenmont, for instance, related to work that you've done, or safety and road safety improvements, livability improvements that could be made within a reasonable budget item in the capital budget, I think would be really helpful, rather than analyzing what is in the CIP and what should be prioritized ahead of other things. I mean, we'll look forward to seeing that too once you've submitted to the planning board. But I think in advance of that, I think it would be helpful to do a bit of here are recommendations in plans or in reports that we have. Here's how much they would cost, and here's the benefit that we think that they would have, to bring a vision to fruition. Is that doable?
As it relates to this study, is that?
Yeah, or if there are other similar studies that you have.
That
But
might take us a little bit more time.
Yeah, you've only done done a few of these, so you could look at other ones. For instance, North Bethesda Pike District is an example.
Oh, I
of
understand.
A
The
similar one that you
studies.
did with like the bus connector. I'm just, there may be other studies that you have done where you could look at those, or recent master plans. You have the Great Seneca Science Corridor, for instance. If there are reasonable recommendations there, I'm just thinking of if you think through the last. I'm not asking you to go through every master plan that's ever been approved over the last 30 years and come up with recommendations from each one. I don't think that's reasonable. And Vice President Joanna was teasing about that. But I do think you could do a look back, let's say over the last 5 years, of work plan items that you have and recommendations that have been part of those work plans, and pick 4 of those, 5 of those at most, to say here are 3, 4, 5 projects that are a reasonable price tag. Again, the hundreds of thousands to small number of millions, not tens of millions, hundreds of millions, et cetera. And why they would particularly help to move the needle in a significant way. And then we could take a look at that, and it could be an opportunity for us to advocate for those if they make sense to bring some of these to fruition. Is that reasonable? And then
Thank you. Yeah, so what I'm understanding is kind of looking at those recent studies that we've done and some
yeah,
other.
5-year look back I think is
Sure.
reasonable. If you have a different cutoff that you think is more reasonable, that's fine too. Let me turn it to Vice President Juan.
No, just trying to be additive. I think that's great. Yeah, if there's a point that makes sense, if it's 3 and not 4 or 5, whatever. And I think that's where the DOT SHA conversations will be helpful too, because there might be stuff. I'm just hoping that there's stuff that's already happening and in progress. So it might make sense. So you're not. I know you'll do this anyway. So you're not like saying you should do X when they've already decided to do Y or whatever, just that kind of coordination I think would need to happen in tandem. But yeah, I think it's a great idea to create like a bang for your buck list on, particularly as it relates to safety and connectivity and mobility. So
This is great, and agreed on coordinating and collaborating with MCDOT. I wasn't suggesting before not to do that. What I was suggesting is just, reaching out without something like this, I think wouldn't be as helpful and valuable to them or to you or to us as we would want. But I think it does, clearly make a lot of sense to coordinate with them, because they're already in the process of thinking through what their CIP submissions are going to be, and the purpose of the exercise is to be collaborative and helpful and constructive, and not having a shadow capital budget, because ultimately whatever the suggestions are, the buck is going to fall on this dais, with us having to figure out how the puzzle pieces fit together and how we make it work, and what we can afford and invest in to move the county forward.
Could I just say also maybe on a little bit higher level in future master plans, when we present recommendations in the master plan, maybe some of it too could be like, without having all the number, we wouldn't have the numbers because OMB wouldn't have done it, but like what is, like a list of what is more implementable earlier than later in some of the suggestions.
Yeah, I think that's a really good. I was thinking about something similar. I think really thinking through in future master plans of, easily implementable or near-term public infrastructure. Without getting into the University Boulevard near-term versus long-term planning and study, because I think we did quite a bit of work to, address some of the concerns that folks had about that. I think on the infrastructure piece of figuring out, there are long-term visions in a lot of master plans that are many billion-dollar investments of the aspirational transportation connectivity network that we would like to see, which is not going to happen. It's going to, in many cases takes a decade or 2 or 3, not a year or 2 or 3, but thinking through what could be done in a year or 2 or 3 to make it a little bit more real for residents. I think one of the challenges in master plans, understandably for residents, is some of the concerns feel immediate and some of the benefits feel distant. And it makes it very hard to get buy-in when that's the case. And so as much as we can think through what are the more immediate opportunities to demonstrate benefits to the community and to the county, to me, I think that's where you can really get a lot more buy-in earlier on. So I think thinking through that would be helpful. Good. All right. Well, thank you for everybody's work on this, and look forward to getting something back from you by December 15th. And with that, colleagues, we are adjourned.
A lot.
I don't manage it all, fortunately. Like, my job, I think, is bringing people together, keeping age-friendly in people's minds. You know, one of the things I think is special about our meetings is that when we come together and people have a chance to